Thank you for being with us this lovely Saturday morning, the Saturday after Christmas. And we are awaiting the new year. And as they say in Yoruba, well, how do you translate Abba Walayo?
Yeah.
Translate.
Translate or transliterate. We will have a good year.
Amen to that.
Okay, so where are we going from here?
Yes. A few days ago, earlier in the week, we witnessed a stampede, or we witnessed stampedes among many awaiting programs in Ibadan, Anambra, and Abuja, where approximately 65 people lost their lives. To worsen the situation, Nigeria's headline inflation worsened to 34.6% in November from 33.8% in October, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The Statistics Office further disclosed that food inflation in November rose to 39.9% year-on-year, higher than the 32.84% recorded in November 2023. All these statistics, what do they all mean? Well, we have people who are going to explain all of this to us, even though I know that what matters to many Nigerians is not all these figures, 37.9, 39 point. The point is, I cannot afford to buy food to eat. I go to the market, one onion is 500 naira. What is going to happen about that so that I can feed my children? That's what I want to know. Well, Mr. Charles Iyore, Principal Partner, Dion & Associates Limited, joins us from Kent in England. Good morning, Mr. Iyore, and season's greetings to you.
Good morning, Alero. Good morning, Ayo. Compliments of the season.
Yes.
It's the same as well.
As I said in the opening, all these big figures, they say that, what did they say again about the economy has grown? Inflation is at this percent and that percent. The Nigerian is bothered that he cannot eat. He has gone to queue to get a bag of rice or something, or 5,000 naira, and all kinds of unfortunate things happen to him. We want to be able to buy food, Mr. Iyore. What can government do to reduce the cost of food and inflation in the land?
Boni Alero, thank you for your perspective. But since we're doing a review, it would be nice to have a clear perspective of what we intend to do. What you have said basically is that there have been many actions that the impact is not felt. That's the summary of what you've asked. And ever since we've ever changed government, even when we took away the colonial masters, the excuse has always been that the government is inefficient and things have not been done well, and critical of the past system. Even when the military came, every time someone becomes a military leader, it tells you we found the government broken. So if we want to review what is going on, for example, we'll need to come from the government side of the review. And you can see that review from the budget statement. What the president has said in his budget statement is that he wants non-inflationary spending, critical. And he knows, therefore, that most of the money that is spending in the system does not create value. So inflationary spending is when you spend money and value is not created. And when value is not created, there's more money chasing after the few goods that have been produced. So you then ask yourself, why is there all these distortions taking place over time? The first thing you need to understand is that you need to have what's called the financial system, which is created by us. God doesn't create a financial system for you, but God gives you the means of production. In other words, you have the land, you have the water, you have the sun, and all those properly applied deals with the first part of production, which is agriculture. And there's no technology in the world that can match God's agriculture. Now, so once you have that arrangement in place, you then ask yourself, what is the financial system? The financial system is that when we decide for people to rule us, it is therefore their decision to make the decision on our behalf. We give away all our authority to decide to the government itself. So, and the financial system is that the money in the central bank is how much of your capital you want to translate into currency. Once it is the central bank, the only way to spend it, which is by law, which is called the pump, is called the budget. And then once the money goes out into the system, the government must therefore find ways of bringing it back in. To pay salaries and stuff and all of those things. So government revenue, including tax, is one. The second one is insurance collections. The third one is pension assets. But all of those assets are in different tribes. If you misapply them, you cause a distortion in the system. So now when you look at all of those things, you ask yourself, what are the sensible targets that they can achieve? Because right now we have an economy in which very many people are not part of the economy. They're just spectators. They don't know what's going on, which is what's causing all this distortion. So if you decide to divide Nigeria into 10 zones, for example, and your first target is to look, let's produce enough eggs in those 10 zones so that every child in school can go on there. What does it produce an egg? Poultry, chicken. For the chicken to work, you grow the corn to feed the chicken. And after you've done that, you go to the next level. You go to the third level. You go to the fourth level. And all of this really can go around in a cycle of 18 months at the maximum. So, but if we are reacting tactically to what we see as challenges, rather than having a long-term strategic review of what we intend to offer, then governance itself is distorted. And that has been the case for more than 40 years. So, first of all, how much of the capital is converted into currency for transaction? How much of that currency is properly applied in a manner that it doesn't cause inflation? And how you settle all of those things? Because basically, if every settlement is by cash, then it's difficult to moderate prices. And if you can't moderate prices, you have high core inflation. So basically, the life that people lead from the morning to the end of the day must be such that they are part of that production process, either by producing or by consuming. Now, the only way this can work is if you have a sound financial system. Now, if you have a very sound monetary system, which we're trying to get to, in which case you're using your, instrument control as well, if the treasury doesn't set out the direction of growth, then you're hiding to nothing. I hope I've answered your question.
Mr. Ayure,
thank you.
This monetary thing you're talking about, of us trying to achieve, is that the reason why we cannot get money from the banks now? Is that a deliberate policy of the central bank to reduce the money in circulation?
That's a logistic error in the sense that you have a situation where the money is not moved to the right place at the right time, maybe to control all the issues. But these discussions have been quite a while. You know, the central bank was trying to devolve the central bank into Abuja and Lagos, which I don't think is enough, because the central bank is not for Abuja and Lagos. You have key zones around 10 areas. And once the central bank governor started, everything was up in arms. Because at the end of the day, in America, you have reserve boards. You can't think that Abuja and Lagos will determine all of the spending across the country. So the central bank needs to be increasingly devolved, to be closer to where the spending is taking place. It's not enough to have committees about how spending is taking place in those places. But like I've told you, all the central bank does basically is a promise to pay. It does not produce. The treasury at the local government, at the state level, and the federal government will have clarity about how it intends to develop production. I think that what you're seeing there is a distortion, because even those of them who are supposed to manage the system, the bank managers and the rest of them, are part of distorting the process. I do not know, I don't think most branch managers can do any credit assessments anymore in Nigeria. All of the credit that is given out by the banks is done by what they call CRECO. If you guys in the middle center who are an executive board determine what they do. And that doesn't mean you cannot have impact in the local economy. You can't achieve financial inclusion if all decisions made or loans and credit are made from one place by a few people who only are making sure that we don't want any risk. Just import your orange juice, take your money and move on. And again, that's a task that the central bank government has been trying to reverse. I mean, at the heart of all of this is what you call business ethics. What is right and what is wrong? If business ethics, both in the financial service, in private sector and the public sector, are not defined, then you're going to have constant leakages in the domestic plumbing. And if there's constant leakages, the water or the liquidity will not get to where it's wanted. And when the water doesn't get there, which is why they're saying that you can't access money in the cash point, we have a crisis on our hands.
Well, thank you, sir. Let me ask, by the way, Dr. Olugbenga Adeoye has since joined us. He is principal partner, Gbenga Adeoye & Co., a chartered accountant, tax expert, is also an arbitrator and international business lawyer. He joins us virtually from Ogun State. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Dr. Adeoye. I'd like to ask you, I mean, you've heard some of the issues that Mr. Ayore has raised. Looking back over the past 12 months of the year 2024, how would you say economically we have said? But I'd like you to speak specifically to the subnationals. He has spoken about the entire nation, at the federal government level. In terms of the states, their performance, their activities, as it affects directly or indirectly the people that live within those states, how would you say economically we have fared?
Okay, Ayo, it seems
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Ayo, it seems your voice is not loud enough, but can you repeat that question again?
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes, better now.
Okay. Mr. Ayore, while speaking, he spoke largely, broadly about the federal government's activities and things that they did and all of that. But I'd like you to speak specifically to the subnationals, and I'm talking all 36 states on the average. How would you say that the state governors or state governments responded to the economic realities that we had to evolve into in the course of the past 24 months, in the course of the past 12 months?
Okay. Actually, we discover over the years that when you talk about economic crisis, people blame the federal government a lot. But I can tell you, the subnationals, they have responsibility. And to a large extent, 95% of them, they have failed in doing what they ought to do. I keep asking the question, there are certain states, when you look at the resources they have, it's more than what you can find in one of the 50 states in the US. So for me, as soon as the current president got into power, and then allocation increased to above 1 trillion, I have not been able to see what most state governments have done differently from what they used to do in the past. Now, critical infrastructure like roads, internal roads, investing in generation, power plant, focusing on industrial hub, that states ought to invest in. I found out that most of the states, they are not, they are nowhere to be found. And you could also see that in the kind of agitation and resistance from many states when it comes to the issue of derivation of the value-added tax revenue for the country. So when you look at the problem of inflation, where inflation on food has risen to above 40%, other items above 34%, between last year and now, I have not seen state government taking the bull by the horn, having their bulk purchase department functioning effectively. You all know that quantity discount is one of the ways to reduce your prices. I have not seen serious investment in internal rail system in the country. It shouldn't take more than 4 years to do all of this. So, and you don't expect the federal government to begin to deal with your internal transportation system. Kudos to Lagos State for what Lagos is able to do in the rail system. Not only that, you're talking about education. When you look at the standard of our schools, I have not seen state government paying attention to technical education that will empower the people. And these are the things that affect the value chain in the economy. The allocation they are getting in trillions, what are they using it for? Rather than invest it in things that would transform the landscape of the economy, that makes the place attractive, that would now become a pull strategy for investors. You just see bogus expenses among governors. So I am not satisfied with the federating units in terms of what they ought to do. And that being so because we have places we can compare them to. Few ones that are doing very well, you then wonder where those people are getting the money to do what they're doing.
Okay.
So,
Dr. Leo, let me ask Mr. Yore the same question about the subnationals as to how, what will be your assessment? Because, if the federal government is doing anything, evolving policies, raising finances and resources and all, the way we will feel the impact is on the people living in the 36 states as well as the capital city in Abuja. So what's your assessment, Mr. Yore, particularly of the subnationals?
Well, what I'll say is that I won't sit in judgment over any of them. Government in the service must set the tone. I was in a similar platform about 5 or 6 days ago with one of the commissioners of one of the states. I said, one of the key things you need to do, freedom does not mean there are no boundaries. There should be a playbook for every local government. So if you go to a local government, you know what to expect and what not to expect. It's not as if they just wake up and say, this is how we want to spend our money. There should be a playbook for each of the states to say, this is what to expect and this is what we don't want to expect. And the central playbook of the federal government is what is regarded as national planning. In the absence of all of that, you have a rogue behavior. Like I said, basically, the ethics of doing business, people try to relate it to morality and religion. There's nothing to do with morality and religion. It's about what is right to do and what is wrong to do. Now, if there are no ethics which represent the retaining walls and the pillars that hold up the system, when you undermine one, you undermine all of them, which is what the president is referring to when he talks about non-inflationary spending. How that will be translated by all of the units within the financial system will determine how the results you are going to get. You can't say because the president becomes local government chairman, he can do what he likes. Like in England, as a local government chairman, you cannot go to the bank to borrow. You don't do deficit budgeting. That's one of them. In England, for example, in those days, they used to have a central way of collecting rubbish. It was never done, and London was in a stink. Right now, all of the boroughs do their own collection. And when one is not able to do it, well, they come together and reduce the cost of collecting garbage. So it's not enough to just blame people if the framework for that to happen is not in place. And then ultimately, like I've said, if you don't run the money that you see is impetus for growth. The money is created by you. Every country creates its own money. But if you print your own money and it's not delivering service to you, and people are taking it without delivering service, in other words, government is forced to pay people when they haven't delivered service. And the money you have printed yourself to create impetus in your own economy, you steal it and use it to buy another person's money. For me, that's beyond slavery. So those are the key issues. If you don't deal with the framework, you cannot say you're in a house if you're not in a house because you dug a hole in the pitch of sand.
Okay.
So basically, the tone has not been properly set for a long time. And like I keep telling you, the key thing you must take out of the president's budget, and I think everybody in government should know what that means, non-inflationary spending.
But who is going to police that, Mr. Iyore? Because
like I just told you, the reason why there's inflationary spending is because you don't have a playbook of what you expect every local government to do. They're making the rules up along the line.
But the president, okay, let me ask, maybe Mr. Dr. Ade might be able to, because the president cannot determine, he can only determine how the budget at the federal level is determined. So if the federal government is saying we will engineer a non-inflationary spending policy, can we legislate that for the state governments as well?
The president is not one person. The president is a presidency. And he has a government. It's one we are giving our mandate to. And he must make those decisions. Let me give you one example, for example, of abuse of collections. Now, we have NHIS, we have HMO and the rest of them. There's enough money in the system to take care of healthcare and pay doctors to be here. But there's no structure or how that money is going to be developed. My brother was about to do that, may so rest in peace, Ade Alakija in Lagos State. What you're saying basically is that if you are collecting money NHS, HMO, can you just please divide that? You allow 50% to go into buying drugs, and they will own it and run the central drugstore.
Okay.
A long time ago. And then you go on and say the next 20% should be used for them to pay for services in the secondary hospital.
I get your point, Mr. Iyore,
yes.
but okay.
So you ask me what the president can do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
I get that. I get that. But that's at the federal level. So, Dr. Adeoye, do you think we can legislate that policy for the state governments as well? Non-inflationary spending?
No. The reason is because states are creation of the law, and it is expected that every state should function on their own. So that's why at the state level, you have the state assembly, you have the executive, you have the judiciary at the state level. Now,
so just a second, Mr. Dr. Adeoye. So if the president, for instance, says non-inflationary spending, and the states do not apply the same policy or parameter or whatever, how effective will the non-inflationary spending of the federal government be?
It's actually going to be limited to the federal level. And you see, policy direction, as good as it is, you need a police over the people. And when I say police now, it has to do with implementation. There's little or nothing Mr. President can do about the activities of governors in their respective states. I'll give you an example. Budget is passed at the state level. We are going to do 10 roads. Quality stated, everything stated. What happens at the point of implementation? Now, non-inflationary spending, you are doing a project that requires physical infrastructure, and you are already buying 20 SUV for this director, for this supervisor, for that one. Now you realize that spending at state level is politically motivated to an extent where you see food for the boys. And so, for Mr. President, he can give direction where we are going. It is now left for us at the state level to do our own things properly. If the president says, this is the direction we are going, it is now left for us at the state level, and I'm saying so, having the state assembly acting on our behalf to call the executive to order. But the question is this: how do they get there to the state assembly? You have 20-something members in the state assembly. The governors purchase their form for them. spend all their campaign funding, and then you are expecting them to do their police job. They cannot do. You have people in the state assembly who does not have personal means of livelihood before now, and they are there. Therefore, you cannot get the result you are looking for. The only solution, my brother, Charles Odion, that is there, let him come and come to the state assembly. Let him come and play his own role. He should not stay in US. Ayo, all of us, let us take part one way or the other to solve our problem. As long as you put the worst in the society, in leadership, at state level, you cannot get results. You have people they are okay, they're doing well in business. Coming into politics now become sacrifice and a service for them. Those are the people that can perform.
Mr. Yore, for a few budgets now, we have talked about diversification of our economy and reducing our reliance on oil. In the year under review, 2024, how well have we done in that regard? Mr. Yore?
I won't respond to whether I'm in England or America and just poking my nose into the business in here. I don't want to go into all of that. If you're not aware, I ran and I worked in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I sat on the committee for FSS 2020 in the Central Bank. I wrote the rules for Security and Exchange Commission. So it's easy to just willy-nilly make all those comments and say. And when foreign exchange started, I published the first newsletter on proper allocation of foreign exchange in this country, when Charles Adiku wrote on the board. So when I talk, you won't talk. It's unfortunate that you speak with such circumspect. I consider that inappropriate. Now, what you said, and I'll give you an example of what needs to be done. You reeled out the figures of what's called core inflation, food. And I just told you basically, there's nothing to being able to ensure that poultry exist somewhere and produce eggs. And that those don't even need to be bought with money so you can moderate prices. I've also told you why the central bank government tried to devolve the function of the central bank and how it was held back. So it's not about blaming people and blaming people, because at the end of the day, they cannot give you what they don't have. I just told you there's no playbook of what you expect in every local government. It's 40 years in doing. A situation where, for example, when I was young, there were inspectors of all schools, whether they were private, public, or missionary. Where are the inspectors of schools today? So those are the issues, and you must deal with the issues.
Deal with the issues for butting in, so that we can have a more functional, more productive governance, as you are, calling our attention to. How do we evolve this playbook? My assumption, and I had often said this, that when anyone gets into office, I'm not sure we have a job description and KPIs for a local government chairman, for a governor, for a commissioner, unless we have those things as it operates in the private sector. I'm not sure if we'll be able to have the kind of governance, productivity that we want. So, is that what you are talking about when you talk about playbook?
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Because basically, when people cannot follow an argument, you hear them say, don't go to Renchi, and all kinds of things. You put down. You follow a logic of what we're talking about. We're saying, for example, the first issue we need to deal with here, your financial system is ineffective. I already described that. We then went on to say, can the state local government just do what they like? They cannot do what they like. There's a tone that is set, for example. So instead of buying 20 SUVs, if you had said that each 10 schools in every local government should have a bus to take children to school and back, those who do not have those buses will have not performed. That you haven't put anything on the line items of the budget. You're analyzing those budgets as if it's an accounting document, income and expenditure. Where's waste? That's not what you're looking at. The duty of those in government is to husband resources. Now, like I was just telling you, if you want to determine the ratios of the budget, because the budget is the pump, you must ask yourself, there are three broad demographics of society. Those who are old and infirm, who cannot support themselves. Those who are the workforce, who are producing everything that you want to do. And those who are school children who must be going into, have instructions to replace the workforce. Let's ask ourselves, take it one by one. Those infirm and elderly, are they taken care of in our system now? And how much of the budget goes to them? Federal, state, and local government. Those who are the workforce, how much money is going to their training so they can be competitive? How much of the budget is allocated to that? Those who are being trained in school, whether it is how to build blocks or do baskets or design clothes or any of those things. Now, those are the issues that once they are in place, you cannot have inflationary spending. So, and I'm saying that if it sets the tone by saying non-inflationary spending, we as media must begin to explain those items in clear terms, like we are saying. It's not about someone talking from America or the moon or elsewhere. That's just a way of excluding people, and when you're not certain that you can match the argument, we're saying there are things that can be done. It's not about blaming the governor or blaming the president or blaming people. We're saying, look, they are the ones we are giving our authority to. They are the ones making the decisions. You can't make decisions on their behalf. You can't go around criticizing them. I heard the Minister of the Economy the other day explaining in clear terms what he intends to do. Now, can he walk? They talk. Those are what we need to do when we're observing. Not saying the local governments are not doing anything, but we don't have a playbook for them. In England, there are places where if you don't allow the local government to do what they need to do, there'll be a crisis. The concept of PPP is what we use to create Bangladesh Hospital, with local governments coming together to build an hospital and ensuring that the patients from those places are the ones that first get into the hospital. Those are what they call the tapestry of society, and it's a detailed job. It's not about criticizing people or saying they mean nothing or they are shooting their mouth where they don't belong. That's risk. It's inappropriate. Thank you.
Dr. Adoye, under the year in review, we're told that our foreign reserves increased. What is the meaning of that in real terms? How does that affect the lives of Nigerians?
Okay. Foreign reserve is a sign that you're not just spending your entire revenue either to service debt or on recurrent, and then you have something to fall back into. Apart from that, when you look at settlement of transactions, especially for essential imports, if your foreign reserve is bad, you're going to run into problem. You'll not be able to meet up. So that is good for us as a country. And it also has effect on our exchange rate in the long run, because essential importation, central bank will be able to clear them on behalf of importers that are importing things genuinely. So that's good news for us, that we're growing our reserve.
Let's look at poverty levels. In the year under review as well, we are told that the number of Nigerians that are living below the poverty line increased. So juxtapose those figures with the plans for 2025. Is there any hope for us?
Well, every year there have been hopes, and 2025 is not going to be different. The year 2024, where many people enter the poverty cadre, is as a result of inflation, such that somebody whose income did not increase is now unable to purchase basic items that he or she could have been able to afford. And so you have an income that cannot pay rent anymore. You have income that cannot buy you rice anymore. So all of this, is what make people to become poor in the country. But again, we're learning big lessons from that. Example was given about, okay, instead of buying SUV, you could buy buses for schools. I believe that one of the ways to overcome poverty in the coming year is responsible spending, which is also called non-inflationary spending. So if you look at the capital of a state, for example, and you purchase buses that will transport people in different locations at subsidized rate, so people are comfortable, regardless of your income level, you are able to move up and down within the city. And not only that, our public schools, if public schools are in good shape, they have roof over their head, they have good teachers, then you can be rest assured that people will be able to send their children there, because these are expenses that people call must in their lives. You just have to spend on it. The third thing is healthcare. To be honest, I want to commend my state for the initiative on health insurance in Ogun State. Personally, I have put about 50 people on health insurance now this year. What that means is that you just spend 12,000 naira, and then whenever you are sick, you have a place to go to for treatment. So the only way, or what I will advocate, is that we need to promote this more, and then well-meaning Nigerians, everybody working class, all your staff, you put them on health insurance, such that this is not part of your worries in the year to come. That, oh, if I'm sick, do I have enough savings to go to hospital? Ordinary malaria, you're looking for money, like what they call Obamacare. So, but the challenge with that is that the government need to invest more in primary health care, for example. I'll give you an example. We wanted to put some people in health insurance in the village at Ajibo. There is no clinic, no healthcare center that is suitable for the state health insurance to direct them to. So they say, oh, they will have to travel almost 25 kilometers to another healthcare center. So these are the things that the government need to look into. At one point you hear, oh, what you have there is Federal Medical Center, the state does not have control. So there is need for collaboration. So you put everybody on healthcare insurance, workers at all levels, encourage every employer of labor to do so. Then the coming year will be a good year for us. So if you don't have problem with transportation, you don't have problem with the school to send your children to, and then your health care is taken care of, then you are good to go. The next thing we need to focus on is renewable energy that's counted for people, for households in the coming year.
Okay. Mr. Yore, in just one sentence, please, your closing thoughts on this as we look forward to 2025.
My closing thoughts is that we should need to take a good look at what the president has said about non-inflationary spending, and how to ensure that all the three cadres of government buy into it and know where to cooperate or disaggregate to ensure that achieves. This way of doing whatever you like in every local government, in every state, and in the ministries, departments, and agencies that is not coordinated makes it difficult for the financial system and the central bank governor to meet every promise to pay for service delivered, which is on our currency.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Yore, Principal Partner, Dion and Associates, who joined us via Zoom from Kent, as well as Dr. Olubenga Adeoye, Principal Partner, Benga Adeoye and Co. He's a chartered accountant and a tax expert, arbitrator, and international business lawyer, who joined us via Zoom from Abeokuta. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do join us.